o'clock hour. But we have the Kings schedule. The Sacramento Kings schedule has been released here on your home for Kings basketball, Sactown Sports 1140. And just wanted to talk about some of the things that stood out to me, and you can jump in. Like I said, phones 800-920-1140, text the show 916-339-1140. They start the season. We knew that they started the season with a home game against Portland on October 19th. Then it'll be the Clippers visiting the Golden One Center on the 22nd. I didn't realize this. I don't know if this fact was out there when we looked. I'm sure it was, and I just didn't read it. First opening night home game for the Kings since the 2018-2019 season. It's been a minute since they opened the season in Sacramento.
That was actually surprising to me because it feels like they're always on the road
when they start the season.
Oh, yeah.
And they have been for the last 3 years, apparently. But not only do they start the season, 2 games to start the season here in Sacramento at the Golden One Center.
They might have started here once in the past 10 years. It feels like.
And 4 of their first 5 games are at home. That's good. League doing them a favor. On top of that, a lot of days off to start the season. 5 games are played in the first 11 days. They have 6 days off in the first 11 days of the season. You usually don't get that. But other than that, the league did the Kings no favors to start off the season. In the first month of their season, they have in 14 games, in the first 30 days of their season, they'll play 14 games. They'll face 10 teams that either made the playoffs or at least the play-in. They'll have 6 games against top 4 seeds from last year's playoff field. 6 games against top 4 seeds. Now, 3 of those are the Golden State Warriors. 3 of those 6 games against top 4 seeds are the Golden State Warriors. Why are you getting the Golden State Warriors 3 times in the first month of the season? They're like an hour and a half, 2 hours south of us in a car. Like, why do they need to? I understand when they bunch games, when you have to travel far to play those games. Why did they feel the need to bunch Warriors and Kings games when they're literally like a 2-hour shot in a bus from us? That didn't make any sense to me. But 6 games against top 4 seeds in the first month and in your first 14 games. And on top of that, outside the teams that either made the playoffs or the play-in last year, 3 of the teams that aren't included in that bunch are a much improved Portland Trailblazers team, you would think healthier and much improved Clippers team, and LeBron and the Lakers, who, I mean, he is still LeBron, and if Anthony Davis is healthy, and who knows what's going on with Russell Westbrook, that could be a good basketball team. We can't count out the possibility that the Lakers could be a good basketball team when you have a LeBron James. So 10 of the 14 games, 10 are against playoff or play-in teams, 6 are against top 4 seeds, and 3 of the teams that aren't in the playoff or the play-in are Portland, the Clippers, and the Lakers. That is a tough way to start your season.
If you look at it glass half full,
yes,
it's the start of the season.
Yes,
those are games that could be stolen.
True.
Like, the teams aren't quite there yet. They're not ready. They're not hitting on all cylinders. If you can, especially if the Warriors, say the Kings like took 2 out of 3 from the Warriors early on, they don't have to face them till April. You don't have to face the Warriors again for like most of the season.
And I'm not saying like it'll be the be all end all, but we're going to get a pretty good measuring stick of what this basketball team is right out of the gates in facing these teams. After that, two long road trips this season. 6-game East Coast swing with stops in Milwaukee, Cleveland, New York, Philly, Toronto, and Detroit. That'll go from December 7th to the 6th. And then from the end of January through early February, longest road trip of the year, 7 games in 5 cities. They got 2 in Minnesota. Then they'll have stops in San Antonio, Indiana, New Orleans, and then 2 games in Houston. I think by the end of that, by the end of February, I said we're going to get a pretty good measuring stick of this basketball team with that tough stretch to open. By the end of February and that long West Coast trip, we're going to know what this team is. And we're either going to be sitting here going, the plan worked. The plan worked. Look at this Kings basketball team. Ooh, baby, look at this Kings basketball team. Or we're going to be sitting here going, all right, so
I told you.
The plan didn't work. What do they do now? What? What's this basketball team do now? I'm telling you, by the end of that road trip in February, as I jostle my mic into my chest, by the end of that road trip in February that ends in like early February, we're gonna know. We're gonna know, and there's gonna be a definite feeling about this basketball team and whether or not they indeed are headed in the right direction.
And usually those road trips, it's like the Kings are like, oh man, if they could do something on this road trip, watch out.
Mm-hmm.
And in previous seasons, it was like, oh wow, you only won one. Well, okay.
And then I mentioned the tough start of the season. Their last 20 games, they have 10 at home, 10 on the road. So they're going to be bouncing back and forth. Of those games, 15 are against teams that made the postseason last year. So you're going to have bookend really, really tough stretches of schedule. And then in between there, in both December and end of January, start of February, you're going to have really long road trips. I don't think they did the Kings a lot of favors in the way that they stacked up the schedule. Other things about it that jumped out to me, I don't know how this compares. I'd imagine that they're pretty conscious in the NBA when it comes to scheduling about evening things, like making sure everything is balanced and even. 15 sets of back-to-back seems like a lot, though. I don't know. It seems like a lot. I would imagine every team probably has about as many because, like I said, I'm sure the NBA is conscious of that. But 15 back-to-backs is a lot. That seems like a lot to me. The only one nationally televised game, that'll be on January 23rd on ESPN against the Rockets. Why? Why Kings and Rockets? Like, I'm all for the Kings getting the national game and the spotlight, but why against the Rockets? Like, if you're going to put the Kings or the Rockets on national TV, you would think it's against like a, top shelf franchise or top shelf star. Kings and Rockets seems like a weird ESPN game to me.
Unfortunately, Houston is probably saying the same thing.
Right? Probably. Yeah. They're like, why are you putting us on national TV? That doesn't make a lot of sense. They'll take on number 1 overall pick, Paolo Banchero. Is it Banchero or Banchero? I've heard both now from people who would both know.
I've heard both too.
Okay. I'm going to go with Banchero then, because that's what Cattle says, and it'd be weird if the show had 2 different pronunciations of the same name, right? And
I mean, if you think about it, you guys will both be right.
That's true. That way the show
will be right.
One way or another, the show is right. Paolo Banchero will take on the Kings on November 5th. They travel to LA to take on LeBron and the Lakers. That'll be the first one. These are the local matchups, Friday, November 11th, or at least in state. And then Lakers travel to Sacramento, December 21st. Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield. We'll see those guys for the first time since that trade in Sacramento, November 30th, and the Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray matchup. The Murray Ivy Bowl will take place on November 20th on Sunday when the Pistons visit Sacramento. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on that one. I think the Murray Ivy thing, because even outside of Sacramento and outside of Detroit, and even leading up to the draft, that 4th pick was kind of where things started. That's where things got interesting, at least. And people were having that debate before the draft and have been having the debate since the draft. So there are your highlights for the Kings schedule released today. Of course, all Kings basketball will be heard right here. Your home for Kings basketball, Sactown Sports 1140. That first month of the season and like the last month of the season really jumped out to me with the strength of schedule that they're going to be facing. Again, in the first month, 14 games, 10 against playoff teams, 6 against top 4 seeds. And other than that, you have Portland, Clippers, and the Lakers, which I think will all be better this year. That's running this team through the gauntlet with these new look Kings, with the new head coach, with the number 1 pick and Keegan Murray. We know that some of the other guys have been here, but adding Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, like there's a lot to get. There's a lot of dominoes to get in a row before the season starts, and you're not going to have much time to like warm up and get this thing going. But we're gonna find out who this Kings team is. And like I said, by the end of February, we're definitely gonna have a really, really good idea of who this Kings team is. You can give us a call, 800-920-1140. You can text the show, 916-339-1140. You can always comment on the YouTube page, youtube.com/SactownSports1140. Right after